I, Douglas Ducote, an American patriot by the grace of God, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from enemies foreign and especially domestic. I, Douglas Ducote, an American patriot by the grace of God, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from enemies foreign and especially domestic.
Say it with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening and welcome to another episode of the Douglas Ducote Show. You had many places to be tonight, but you chose to be here with me, and for that I am forever grateful. Tonight's lead story is about Hunter Biden and different people with the administration, Democrats, that are defying Republicans that are now in control of Congress. You may recall that during the entire 4 years that Donald Trump was president, Democrats screamed and hollered that any Republican that refused to come to Congress and testify against all the different things that they brought against him, which none of them stuck, by the way, because none of them were true. Those that didn't, well, they ended up putting subpoenas against them and subpoenaing them into to go into Congress and testify. And the Democrats made it into a dog and pony show beyond belief. We all watched it. There's nothing that was hidden there. And no matter what the Republican side tried to say about how the Democrats were acting, they shot them down in a way of it's all political grandstanding. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. Nobody's above the law. We're going to get to the bottom of this criminal enterprise, the Trump enterprise. And then now things have switched. And it's the Republicans saying, hey, look, we told you this day would come. One day you're no longer going to be in power, and we're going to have the power of the House. And when that happens, we're going to investigate all the things that we weren't able to investigate because you guys would not let us investigate. Instead, y'all went after things that were dead-end roads. Nothing burgers. And what are the Democrats doing right now? Well, once again, they're coming out and saying that all this the Republicans are doing is all grandstanding. It's all a political BS. It's revenge, whatever you want to call it. And that's where we're at right now. Because yesterday, the deadline passed for Hunter Biden, James Biden, and business partner Eric Schwan to hand over documents to the House Oversight Committee related to their foreign business dealings, which means House Republicans could resort to subpoena to obtain the information they seek. Now, let me go on record and say that if the House does not subpoena them, then every member of the House and the Republican Party needs to go away. Because that's what they did. And they put on a trial, basically, using our house, the people's house, knowing that the information wasn't there, that they were trying to spin to the public that it was. And we watched for the past 4 years things come out Thank God for Hunter Biden being on crack and meth and forgetting his laptop from a repair shop and that being exposed. So we were able to learn a lot from emails and documentation that was on that laptop of all the illegal criminal activity that was happening with the Biden family. And of course, the Democrats are saying, don't look at that. It's all a farce. Look the other way. So, spokesman for the House Oversight Committee said that they'd received correspondence from Hunter and James Biden's attorneys, but the committee still appears to be in discussions with them over requested documents. Oversight Committee staff will be communicating with them about Chairman Comer's request. We are also in contact with Eric Schweren's attorney and expect him to start producing documents to the Oversight Committee soon, the spokesman said. It is not clear if Republicans plan to issue the subpoenas. They should have been issued immediately when the time expired yesterday. Period. Issue them. Representative Pat Fallon, Republican of Texas, who sits on the Oversight Committee, told Fox News yesterday the subpoena order would be a last resort, but said, I think we're really close to it, frankly. The committee this month asked Hunter Biden and Sworn to turn over information and records related to Hunter's foreign business dealings as Republicans probe whether members of the Biden family leveraged Joe Biden's position as vice president to sell access around the world. Now, we know what was leaked from the laptop. We know what was leaked from the emails. We know what the people that were part of this whole deal with China and Ukraine have now come out. They were business partners with Hunter. Their own record telling us what was happening in this criminal family because they were part of it. When Joe Biden has claimed all along he knew nothing about his son's business dealings, he knew nothing about what his son was doing with China, he knew nothing about what his son was doing with Ukraine, we know that's a lie. The president of the United States lied. We know that. It's factual that he lied because from the laptop, we've got photographs of Joe Biden with all these players that supposedly he knew nothing about in different locations. And President Biden is compromised by deals with foreign adversaries, and they're impacting his decision-making. This is a threat to national security, Representative James Comer, Republican Kentucky, said yesterday. The American people deserve transparency and accountability about the Biden's family influence peddling. Now, let me stop there for a second. So I want to make sure everybody grasps just how factual what we know is without even going in front of the House from just what's already been leaked. Remember the whole quid pro quo thing with Donald Trump and all that crap and the investigation that happened with all that didn't exist? Okay. Joe Biden is on record. You can look it up right here on YouTube and hear it from his own mouth, bragging about how he told the Ukrainians that were getting ready to investigate his son for criminal dealings within the country that he was going to hold up the financial aid the U.S. was going to give them unless they fired the prosecutor that was looking into Hunter Biden. That is as illegal as can be. He threatened to withhold financial aid that Congress had already authorized for the country unless they fired the prosecutor going after his son. Joe Biden did that, and he brags about it. Again, you can see it. It's on YouTube. It's all over the internet. And the FBI let it go right over their heads. The Department of Justice right over their heads. Nobody gives a shit. I do. I'm sure you do. And we sent these members to Congress to represent us. So represent us. This is a big fucking deal. And it needs to be addressed properly. Joe Biden is on record, on video, bragging about having this prosecutor fired in order to get the money that Congress authorized. That is a criminal offense, my friends. Look it up. The Oversight Committee is committed to exposing the waste, fraud, and abuse that has taken place at the highest levels of our government. Hunter Biden, James Biden, and Eric Schwartz documents, records, and communications are critical to this investigation, he added. Hunter Biden's attorney, Abel Lowell, initially fired back at the committee's request by saying it lacks a legitimate legislative purpose. My ass. As your letter is a sweeping attempt to collect an expansive array of documents and communications from President Biden and his family, I write to explain that the Committee on Oversight and Accountability lacks a legitimate legislative purpose and oversight bias for requesting such records for Mr. Biden, who is a private citizen, Lowell wrote. So was Donald Trump when the House still went for a second attempt at impeachment. Guess what? You're an attorney? Where the fuck did you get your license from? Bubba Gump, attorneys at law in Pascagoula, Mississippi? What kind of statement is that? Rather than engaging in back and forth letter writing campaigns for any formal proceedings, I would offer to sit with you and your staff, including the ranking members of this staff, to see whether Mr. Biden has information that may inform some legitimate legislative purposes and be helpful to the committee. I hope that you will engage in this effort. The attorney said. Comer is also investigating potential leaks between Hunter and the Chinese Communist Party. Also on Tuesday, he sent a letter to former UN General Assembly President Ducote Sr. on his connection to the Biden family's business dealings, invoking Patrick Ho, who is linked to China and was convicted of international bribery charges by the Department of Justice during the Trump administration. Mr. Jermick's previous testimony regarding business relationships with officials who participated in international bribery schemes raised red flags that may be evidence showing the Biden family and associates peddled influence and attempted to sell access, including to individuals connected to the Chinese Communist Party. I said, and I will say once again, Republicans in Congress, that it is up to we the people to hold them accountable for their actions once they got back in. And that was going to be our hardest thing that we could do as patriots. It's one thing to say what you're going to do if you elect me, but then when we elect you and you turn around and say, fuck you, that's something else. That's a one-termer, my friends. So we all need to be aware of that. And we need to reach out to our Republican members of Congress in the House and the Senate and say, you work for us. We pay your salary. You promised us you were going to do X, Y, and Z. Now, damn it, do it. And this reminds me of the promise that Donald Trump made to us. If you elect me, Hillary will be held accountable for her actions. With everything from Benghazi to deleting the emails, destroying government property, the server in her basement. And at all his rallies, people were chanting, lock her up, lock her up. And Trump cheered it on. And as soon as he got into office, he squashed it and would not let the Department of Justice go after her. This is no different. Why? Why do we do this? Why are we talking 24 hours later about something that should have been done 24 hours ago, which is subpoena their ass? There's no more talking with them. Republicans have been talking about this for over 2-3 years now, ever since the laptop came out. It came out during the campaign, for crying out loud. And we know that the FBI was politically involved, and so was the Department of Justice, to tell social media companies that was Russia disinformation when they knew it wasn't, because they had the laptop in their possession. They interfered with a presidential election. Hold them accountable, Republicans. That's all we ask of you. We send your ass up there to work for we the people. Do your job. Moving on, the House Judiciary Committee is holding an in-person hearing at the southern border in Yuma, Arizona today, and was told of the massive migrant surge seen under the Biden administration and of the strain that is placed on authorities and hospitals in the area. Republicans had scheduled the hearing on the Biden border crisis, as they're calling it. It's the latest in a number of hearings across multiple committees on the ongoing crisis at the border, which has seen record numbers of migrants flood to the border during the Biden administration. Democrats were not in attendance, having dismissed the hearing as a political stunt and grandstanding. But it wasn't when you were going after Donald Trump and you came up empty-handed every time you spent and wasted our money. Political grandstanding while claiming there was no communication from Republicans with them, which Republicans said is absolutely not true. We told them exactly what we're doing, when we're doing it, how we're doing it, and we want them there. And they didn't show up. The hearing featured 3 witnesses: Jonathan Lyons, who is a county supervisor in Yuma County, Sheriff Leon Wilmot, and Dr. Robert Tranchell, President and CEO of Yuma Regional Medical Center. In witness statements obtained by Fox News Digital tonight, the 3 officials described a hellish few years and a record-breaking migrant crisis, which saw more than 1.7 million encounters in fiscal year 2021, over 2.3 million in fiscal year 2022, and fiscal year 2023 on track to exceed that. And that's just how many were caught. Triple that number for how many got through and we didn't catch. Since President Biden took office, we saw a huge surge, a record number of people crossing the border illegally from 106 different countries. 17 of those countries are what was described as special interest because of the negative relationship with the United States, and it has steadily continued these many months later, Lyons said in his testimony. And he's talking about the actual terrorists that we caught. Along with the illegal entry into the U.S. across an open border, the increase in the trafficking of narcotics, both human trafficking and drug trafficking, remain an all-time high, significantly greater than under any other administration in the history of the United States of America. Think about that for a moment. In the first 2 years of Joe Biden's presidency, more illegal aliens have been caught at the border and more have gotten away than at any time under any president in the history of this country. Yet, the Homeland Security Secretary, who refuses to resign, says what? Oh, the border's secure. Bull-faced liar. Lyons went on to stress that the issue is not just something that affects Yuma, but illegal entry, human trafficking, and narcotics, especially fentanyl and methamphetamines, has now compounded and pervades across the states to affect every community across our nation, now making them into border communities. Truthsocial, who has been in his role leading in the medical center for 8 years, testified how many migrants come in very sick and have long-term complications for chronic diseases, as well as language and cultural concerns, where we can't even speak to them to find out what the hell's wrong with them. Migrants often require 3 times the amount of human resources to resolve their cases and provide them with a safe discharge as defined by Centers for Medical and Medicaid Services. Go figure. That effort includes assistance locating their families, making sure they have a safe place to go when they are discharged, arranging and sometimes purchasing durable medical equipment when needed. Also testified that the center has delivered over $26 million in uncompensated care to migrants in a 12-month period, enough to support the salary and benefits of 212 bedside nurses. It is an unsustainable model to have a hospital like ours bear the entire burden in paying for migrant health care. No business or services can survive on ongoing large-scale expenses without an offsetting revenue, he said. City of Yuma has 100,000 people, and we've had over 300,000 people cross the border in just Yuma. There are 3 times the population of Yuma coming across the border. We are the only hospital within a 3-hour radius of that area, which means they come here. Sheriff Wilmot, meanwhile, testified how Border Patrol apprehensions of illegal immigrants in the area have gone up from 40 a day to over 1,000 a day in just Yuma area. And how the county has had to shell out tens of thousands of dollars to lease porta-johns to stop migrants from defecating in the crops of farmers. His county has spent $323,000 in fiscal year 2022 on booking costs of illegal immigrants who have committed state crimes, including sexual exploitation of minors, narcotics charges, assaults, kidnapping, burglary, and theft cases. He also outlined other risks coming across the border, including seizure of fentanyl and other drugs, as well as financial crimes being coordinated by cartels across our border. Our southern border, against all public comfort statements come out of Washington, D.C., is the worst shape I've ever seen in my career, he said in his testimony. When one looks at public safety, national security, and humanitarian, our southern border can only be described as the largest crime scene in the United States of America. Sheriff also has a message for lawmakers in D.C. Quote, "One would hope the priority of securing our border doesn't become just about a price tag and or political posturing, but rather the legal and moral requirement to safeguard all of America. And so many heroic Americans have already paid the ultimate price," he said. And they're called angel families, my friends. Look it up. Today's opportunity to address this committee and a border community outside of Washington, D.C. environment instills fresh hope that our voices does matter. And on behalf of the citizens of Yuma County, Arizona, and beyond, we hope that you will carry out your constitutional mandate to bring positive change to an overdue, vulnerable situation. The hearing, one of a number being held in person at the border, comes after the Biden administration announced a rule this week. We talked about this in Tuesday's show, that bars some migrants from claiming asylum if they cross the border illegally and also pass through other countries without claiming asylum there. That is what has met with disapproval by many Democrats and immigrant activists. Republicans have hammered the administration for not doing enough to secure the border and for revisiting policies from the Trump era that they say worked when he reversed them. The administration has pushed back, putting their short-term numbers they say that show recent border measures are having an effect. Yeah, they're having an effect, all right, a negative one. Meanwhile, both Democrats and the administration have called on Republicans to pass a comprehensive immigration reform unveiled on day one, but that is provided to be a non-starter with Republicans due to the inclusion of a pathway to citizenship for millions of illegal immigrants already in our country. The House held their hearings on this issue where the issue's actually at. I applaud that. They didn't do it in Washington, D.C. They went to where the issue was. This should be something that happens on a regular basis, for crying out loud. If you're going to investigate, for instance, what took place in Ohio with the train derailment, go have your hearings there when you bring these people in front of you for hearings about their testimony. I think this is a great thing. So they went and did it in Yuma City. And the Democrats refused to show up. Not a single one of them showed up. Because they know what the truth is. They know what the facts are. But they're pandering to the far left, which is what destroyed the Democrat Party that I once used to belong to. The far left infiltrated everything. They destroyed that party. Now, I will admit there are some Democrats still hanging on that are trying to change that, or trying to get it back to a difference, but it's never going to happen. It's done. It is now the party of the far left, packed full of socialists and people from countries that don't like us. Not to mention any names. Alejandro Mar. Not to mention any names. Rashid Tlaib. There's a story that's been going on in Arizona for the past couple of weeks. I'm sure you've all heard about this by now. This is the first time I've reported on it because it is so conflicting and all over the place, depending on which news outlet you listen to, that here's my deal. If I can't zero in on something that can be proven as factual information, I choose not to report on it because I don't want to look like a fool. And the times that I have gotten something wrong, I'll come out and tell you I got it wrong. And I correct it. So when this story hit, there was a million different ways this could go. And I think I got it zeroed in now. So here we go. Arizona rancher George Allen Kelly, who is facing murder and other charges in the shooting of a Mexican national on his border property, has been released from custody today. Santa Cruz County Sheriff's Office Chief Deputy Bernardo Costello confirmed that 73-year-old Kelly posted bond yesterday after appearing in court. Judge Emilio Valenzuela had upheld Kelly's $1 million bond, though agreed to convert it from cash to security. He also set the next hearing date for Friday, which is going to be tomorrow, despite the defense pleading for a continuance of at least 30 to 60 days to allow time to confer with experts and gather the forensic and ballistic evidence they say authorities have neglected to process. Christian crowdsourcing site Give, Send, Go had picked up the fundraising baton from Kelly's bond and defense after GoFundMe booted the campaign and would not allow people to raise money to get this rancher out of jail. George and Wanda Kelly are so grateful for all your support and donations. A post read Thursday on a Give, Send, Go fundraiser titled Drop Charges Against Arizona Rancher George Kelly, announcing the rancher's release. Excuse me. When we come together and stand for what is right, we make a difference. They still have a long road ahead of them. Please continue to support George. God bless. Now, Kelly's attorney, Brenda Larkin, said she was unable to comment today when asked about the rancher's release. In court yesterday, Larkin blasted prosecutors for charging Kelly with first-degree premeditated murder before a thorough investigation into the January 30th shooting on the ranch he shared with his wife, Wanda, from decades outside Nogales. The rancher was charged with 2 additional counts of aggravated assault on Tuesday. They piled it on. After prosecutors say 2 surviving victims stepped up and offered testimony. The state maintains Kelly shot an unarmed man in the back in an unprovoked attack as he ran for his life, more than 100 yards from Kelly's residence. But the defense contains Kelly only fired warning shots into the air earlier that day after spotting a group of armed men moving through the area by his home and ranch. The defense filing alleged one of the armed men pointed an AK-47 at Kelly, who then called Border Patrol ranch liaisons multiple times that day. Prosecutors claimed the group was not armed. Larkin told the courtroom Wednesday that there's a very large incentive structure for people to come forward and to have claim to be witnesses, noting the exception of immigration benefits, as well as pressure from traffickers who have an interest in blaming this event on Mr. Kelly. Testimony is something that is brought and sold by drug traffickers the same way the drugs and people are brought and sold, Larkin said on Wednesday. So let me sum up to you what I know so far, besides what I just read to you. There is a long history of Mr. Kelly contacting Border Patrol and law enforcement because of illegal immigrants crossing through his land, damaging his land, damaging his property, damaging his home, his cars, his tractors, everything. Long list. And then we know that the cartel are now moving people across, and they are armed with AK-47s and other type weapons. Mr. Kelly sees this happening. Armed men basically transporting illegal immigrants across his land. He calls 911. He fires off a couple of shots in the air to scare them away. There are other shots fired, but we don't know where they came from. Law enforcement, the Border Patrol gets there to his property, and they search the entire property and find no body, no blood. Nobody was shot or killed. So there's no charges against Mr. Kelly. He's on his own land. He's defending it. He fired warning shots in the air. He dialed 911. Law enforcement responded. These people got away. Law enforcement checked the property. Mr. Kelly's land, there's nothing there. The next day, after the district attorney found out about it, sent people back out there to search further. And lo and behold, what do they find on the back side of the property? A dead Mexican, shot in the back. And then they go and arrest Mr. Kelly, this 74-year-old man who's got a disabled wife at home that can't fend for herself and refuse to allow him out of jail. No bond. Thankfully, people got involved and went and rescued her and got her out of that house to take care of her while this went on with Mr. Kelly. It comes down to forensics. The bullet that was in the back of this Mexican, is it going to match up with Mr. Kelly's gun that they have in their possession? If it doesn't, I'm going to tell you what I already think. This guy was shot by the cartel at some point after all this happened with Mr. Kelly. And now these liberal Democrat DAs have a hard on for Mr. Kelly and wanting to prosecute somebody for trying to defend their own land. Now, sadly, the chain of evidence between the bullet that's going to come out of this kid, or whoever this guy was, and Mr. Kelly's gun, I don't trust that for nothing. This case needs to be transferred out of that fucking area ASAP. It needs to be investigated by other agencies that aren't within that community to make damn sure Mr. Kelly, if he's innocent, isn't framed. And what a crying ass shame that he or anyone end up in this situation. And I've told you about this for quite some time. I've reported on it. Hell, I went down and did several documentaries on the border. We talked to many landowners, telling the same stories over and over and over again. Now, if it does turn out that the bullet came from Mr. Kelly and Mr. Kelly shot this guy in the back, Mr. Kelly's going to go to prison. It's murder, regardless if he's an illegal immigrant or not. But there's so much to this story, and it's all over the freaking platform. I mean, every news outlet's out there been covering it, and it's very difficult to zero in on what's fact. But I'm starting to do that now because I believe it's a very important story that is told. Because there are some people, and we know this for a fact, I know it for a fact because I've been down there many times, that don't give a shit about this country, although they're Americans and they represent this country in different places in law enforcement and the DA's office and things of that nature, that want the border to be open for a reason, because the drug cartel's paying them massive amounts of money under the table. And we know that for a fact because many of them have been arrested, from law enforcement officers, border patrol agents, sheriffs, district attorneys. There have been many people caught and arrested for taking payoffs from the drug cartel to turn their head and look the other way. Now, Mr. Kelly's land becomes an open free-for-all for the drug cartel to just funnel the shit out of that area with drugs and human trafficking and on and on and on. So I think there's a lot more coming, and I'll stay on top of this story for you. Israel is preparing for possible action against Iran's nuclear facilities after a series of secret meetings between the prime minister and leaders from the defense and intelligence ministries, according to a report that was leaked out of Israel. Israel will not allow Iran to become nuclear. Brigadier General Amar Avia, founder and chairman of the Israel Defense Securities Forum, told Fox News Digital. As we are witnessing the continued unhinged progress of the Iranian military nuclear program with weapon-grade enrichments, Israel is readying its credible military options. Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, held 5 meetings with his defense and intelligence chiefs, as well as the head of Mossad, to discuss the possible attack. Local news outlet Channel 12 reported. The report did not name any source. The Times of Israel speculated that officials could have leaked the report in order to make clear the country's resolve and intent. Tensions between Israel and Iran have flared in recent weeks after a drone strike hit Iranian military facilities, with Iran claiming early investigations suggested Israel regime was responsible and it was an attempt at act of aggression. Israel has regularly raised concerns about Israel's nuclear program because Iran claims and is on record saying that once they develop a nuclear weapon and are capable of delivering it, they're going to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. The only thing that has ever stopped a rogue nation from developing nuclear weapons is a credible military threat or credible military action, the Prime Minister of Israel said in a national security conference that was held on Tuesday. Necessary condition and often a significant condition of credible military action, he continued. The longer you wait, the harder that becomes. We've waited very long. The Biden administration had attempted to revive the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, also known as the Iran nuclear deal, following former President Trump's withdrawal from the agreement. Talks stalled out back in September after it appeared that Iranian officials continue to move the goalpost on demands. So, if it is leaked, I wish it hadn't been. I would just, for one, like to see Israel they've done it before, go do it again. Send your military in there, do an airstrike, and knock this fucking facility out that's building these weapons. Just do it. Do it. Do it. Now we're gonna piss off liberals and Democrats. That's my plan right now. Not that I haven't already done that, but boy, are we about to do it right now. So all you liberals and Democrats, sit down and listen. A growing list of cities across America are looking to set up reparations programs for Black residents. And some of them are considering using COVID-19 relief funds to pay for the initiative. Providence, Rhode Island has already dedicated $10 million in pandemic relief towards creating the Providence Municipal Reparations Commission to address racial equality. A commission to study it. Officials in Shelby County, Tennessee, which includes Memphis, will vote on whether to spend $5 million in pandemic relief money to study the possibility of a longer-term reparations program. There are wide disagreements on this topic, Representative Byron Daniels said. To use pandemic spending on something that Congress did not vote for and approve for localities to say that they're just going to basically repurpose the funds for this, for me, this is outrageous and should not occur. I agree. The purpose for this money was to be spent on COVID-related issues. And now these liberal areas have decided we want to spend it on putting together studies to determine how we're going to pay the Black communities reparations for what happened many, many years ago, before any of us on the face of the earth was alive, to their ancestors. So, here's my thought for what it's worth. And maybe the liberals will like this, but I don't think so. I'd be okay with this idea if they spent the money actually on trying to fix the epidemic of black-on-black crime in our inner cities. But I doubt that will be on the table because the liberal Democrats making these decisions don't care about black lives. That is a fact. How is that a fact, you ask? It was the Democrat Party that founded the KKK. It's the Democrat Party that was responsible for segregation. It's the Democrat Party that planned and built and founded Planned Parenthood, which is founded to kill off the black race via abortion. It was the Democrat Party that voted against freeing the slaves, every single one of them, back during Abraham Lincoln's time. And today, the Democrat Party is busy backing violence via what's happening by Black Lives Matter in inner cities, defunding the police, and within every major metropolitan city in America, where the crime is out of control with young black youth, the mayors and city councils are made up of what? Drum roll. I know it's going to surprise a lot of you. Democrats. So it's a fact the liberal Democrats don't care about black lives. Now, I'm going to drive that point home by sharing something with you called the inconvenient truth about the Democrat Party. And I've actually shared this in a video in the past. It's been a while. But it's very important that it gets sent back out there again for the Democrats and liberals to understand. It was written by a lady by the name of Carol Swan. Now, if you don't know who Carol Swan is, it's important that you grasp who she is before I read you what she wrote. And she put out a video about it too. Carol Swan, she's a 68-year-old black female. She grew up in poverty in a black community in Bedford, Virginia, living in a shack without running water and sharing 2 beds with her 11 siblings. She did not have shoes and therefore missed school whenever it snowed outside. She did not finish high school, dropping out in the 9th grade. She moved to Renault with her family in the 1960s and appealed to a judge at that time to be transferred to a foster home because her stepfather was abusive to her and her mother. And of course, that judge denied the request. But thankfully, her grandparents stepped in and she was raised up in a trailer park. As an adult, she earned a GED while working as a cashier at McDonald's. She also was a door-to-door salesperson, an assistant in a retirement facility. But she later went on to earn an associate's degree from Virginia Western Community College. She went on to earn a magna cum laude BA in criminal justice from Renault College and a master's degree in political science from Virginia Tech. While an undergraduate at Renault College, she organized a scholarship fund for black students, and by 2002, had an endowment of $350,000. But that's not all for education. She finished a PhD in political science from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill in 1989. In 2000, she earned a Master of Legal Studies from Yale Law School. Much like me, she grew up as a Democrat till 2000s. Then she became an independent. She was an independent between 2000 and 2009. And finally, a Republican from 2009 to present. So in my mind, when I read about her background and how she was raised and where she was raised and everything she went through, when she speaks about race issues in America, it comes from her personal experience growing up in the 60s with violence against black people, as well as her extensive education and continued studies today on what the Black communities are faced with. So here you go. The inconvenient truth about the Democrat Party. When you think about racial equality and civil rights, which political party comes to mind? The Republicans or the Democrats? Most people would probably say the Democrats, but this answer is incorrect. Since its founding in 1829, the Democrat Party has fought against every major civil rights initiative and has a long history of discrimination, to include today. Democrat Party defended slavery, started the Civil War, opposed Reconstruction, founded the Ku Klux Klan, imposed segregation, perpetrated lynchings, and fought against the Civil Rights Act of the 1950s and the 1960s. In contrast, the Republican Party was founded in 1854 as an anti-slavery party. Its mission was to stop the spread of slavery into the new Western territories with the aim of abolishing it entirely. This effort, however, was dealt a major blow by the Supreme Court. In the 1857 case, Dred Scott versus Sanford, the court ruled that slaves aren't citizens, they're property. The 7 justices who voted in favor of slavery were who? All Democrats. The 2 justices who disdained were both Republicans. The slavery question was, of course, ultimately resolved by a bloody civil war. The commander-in-chief during the war was the first Republican president, Abraham Lincoln, the man who freed the slaves. 6 days after the Confederate Army surrendered, John Wilkes Booth, a Democrat, assassinated President Lincoln. Lincoln's vice president, a Democrat named Andrew Jackson, assumed presidency. But Johnson immediately opposed Lincoln's plan to integrate the newly freed slaves into the South's economic and social order. Johnson and the Democrat Party were unified in their opposition of the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery, the 14th Amendment, which gave blacks citizenship, and the 15th Amendment, which gave blacks the right to vote. All 3 passed only because of universal Republican support. During the era of Reconstruction, federal troops stationed in the South helped secure rights for the newly freed slaves. Hundreds of black men were elected to Southern state legislatures as Republicans, and 22 black Republicans served in the U.S. Congress by 1900s. Democrats did not elect a black man to Congress until 1935. But after Reconstruction ended, when the federal troops went home, Democrats roared back into massive power in the South. They quickly reestablished white supremacy across the region with measures like black codes, laws that restricted the ability of blacks to own property and run businesses. And they imposed poll taxes and literacy tests, using to subvert the black citizens' right to vote. And how was all of this enforced? Well, by terror. Much of it instigated by the Ku Klux Klan, founded by Democrat Nathan Bedford Forrest. As historian Eric Foner, himself a Democrat, notes, in effect, the KKK, the Klan, was a military force serving the interests of the Democrat Party. President Woodrow Wilson, a Democrat, shared many views with the Klan. He resegregated many federal agencies and even screened the first movie ever played at the White House, the racist film, The Birth of a Nation, originally entitled The Klansman. A few decades later, the only serious congressional opposition to the landmark Civil Rights Act of 1964 came from Democrats. 80% of Republicans in Congress supported the bill. Less than 70% of Democrats did. Democrat senators filibustered the bill for 75 days until Republicans mustered the few extra votes needed to break the logjam. And when all their efforts to enslave blacks, kept keeping them enslaved, and then kept them from voting had failed, Democrats came up with a new strategy. If black people are going to vote, they might as well vote Democrats. As President Lyndon Johnson said about civil rights, quote, I'll have them niggers voting Democrat for 200 years. That's pretty fucked up. So now, the Democrat Party prospers on the votes of the very people it has spent much time in history oppressing, which baffles the shit out of me. Democrats falsely claim that the Republican Party is the villain, when in reality, it's the failed policies of the Democrat Party that have kept blacks down. Massive government welfare has decimated the black family. Opposition to school choice has kept them trapped in failing schools. Political correct policing has left black neighborhoods defensive against violent crime. So when you think about racial equality and civil rights, which political party should come to mind? And she signs off by saying, I'm Carol Swan, professor of political science and law at Vanderbilt University for Prager University. Folks, I used to be a Democrat. All my family was Democrats. In fact, when I grew up in the 60s and 70s and 80s, everybody in the South were Democrats. I know firsthand, because I experienced it, hell, I was part of it. The racial injustice that takes place, not only then by the Democrat Party, but today. It wasn't until the mid-'80s, after I went into the United States military, that I was able to get away from the South and interject and be a part of the black community in a way that they became my brothers and sisters in the military. And I realized just how fucked up the Democrat Party was. And I switched parties. I learned that the Democrats didn't give a shit about the military. They didn't care about our veterans. They sure as hell didn't care about black people. And to this day, as you look across the United States of America, how beautiful it is, how free it is. If you look into the intercities of our states, everywhere there is major black on black crime, an epidemic of black youth shooting and gunning down other black youth. It's in cities controlled by Democrats, black and white men, or black and white women. That is a fact that cannot be denied. Although, you look at any member of the Democrat Party in Washington, D.C., and they will tell you straight to your face that that's a freaking lie. It's not. Don't even try and convince them otherwise, because they're too fucking stupid to realize history. Hell, they don't have a computer. They don't read the paper. They have a freaking cell phone. It's all right here. Learn the facts. Folks, you have many places to be tonight. You chose to be here with me, and for that, I am forever grateful. Thank you very, very much. If anything breaks between now and next Tuesday's show, I'll be sure to put out a video about it or do a show on it. If you haven't already done so, please go check out DouglasDucote.com. You can also see the videos there of the Border Patrol documentaries we did. You can learn for yourself just how screwed up it was a couple of years ago. And it's way worse today. Because when I went down there and did the documentaries, Trump was in office. And it was a nightmare then. He was trying to fix it. And now, it's an open war zone. Literally, you would be safer walking any town in Afghanistan than you would along our southern border. And you can walk it in Afghanistan wearing a fucking red, white, and blue shirt, for crying out loud, waving the American flag. And you'd be safer than you would be on our own southern border. As always, please say a prayer for our men and women serving in the United States military, our veterans, our law enforcement officers, our first responders, and their families. our angel families, our blue and gold star families, and our country. May God bless the United States of America. Thank you all. Good night. God bless you, and be safe.